So I think maybe the most difficult thing is that I don't think I've even started grieving yet. I think I've been suppressing so I can survive. So I technically, honestly, think I have not begun. I think there have been glimmers of that, right? The memorial, the celebration of life, the spreading his ashes, and all of the emotional things, and some very, very, very difficult days. But I really think the hard part hasn't hit me yet, because I'm still pretending that everything's okay. So, and that's the honest truth, is that I really genuinely don't think I've begun yet.
Thank you for joining us here on Season 6 of Game on Glio. We're so glad to be bringing you more stories, fresh, new stories that will light up your life, inspire you, teach you, and give you hope. I have a quote that I'd like to share with you. It's something that I heard a few months ago, and it's been sitting with me and resonating with me a little bit. Many of us out there are running around trying to accomplish goals that were set by our reactive, younger, less wise versions of ourselves. And how much happier would we be if we could just erase those outdated goals, forgive ourselves for not meeting that bar, and just try to do something that lights us up? James Van Der Beek said that. He made that quote in 2024. James died this past February from colon cancer. He was 48 years old. This quote got me thinking about how death changes so much of our thinking, our perspective on life, what life should be versus what it is. I'm in a year of self-care this year, 2026. What does that mean? Well, I'm taking time to allow joy to fill me up instead of allowing my circumstances to bring me joy. I'm finding peace in each moment instead of finding peace when everything goes well. Death is the end of the person here on earth, but it's the beginning for the ones that loved them. What does that mean? It's the beginning of true understanding, what it means to be present, to be here. It opens up time for us to see what it means to live this life. Grief teaches us as much as love does. It's a journey. But until death knocks on our door, until we have truly witnessed and known and seen death and it has touched us, I think we lose sight of what the purpose of life truly, truly is. And death has a tendency to put such a fine point on the meaning of life, on the presence of life, on the importance of this one life that we are given. When James Van Der Beek says, we're trying to accomplish all these goals that are set by our reactive younger selves, he's speaking to the meaning of life and how when you go through a diagnosis, when you grieve or start going through the death of somebody, all of a sudden, all of that other stuff washes away. That the importance of those things that you thought were important are no longer important anymore. And you start to really, truly see and understand what it means to be present in the moment of this life. You just go with something that lights you up. And that's why I'm in a year of self-care. I'm in a year of not feeling guilty about finding joy, about letting joy find me, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. I'm not being scared by it. And instead of letting my circumstances define what joy is for me, I'm letting joy fill me up, and I'm just running with it. I'm just rolling with the punches. Today, We are bringing back a guest that was on season 3 of the show back in 2023. Diane Pathieu, along with her husband, Nick Adamski, were guests of ours back on our season 3, which feels like forever ago now, but it wasn't that long ago. Nick died from brain cancer at the end of 2025. He fought hard and he lived the way he wanted to. Diane is a news anchor with WLS TV in Chicago. She was his devoted wife, partner, best friend. She sits down with us to talk about then versus now and how she's moving through this grief and loss with honesty, power, peace, and joy. She joins us next after a brief word from one of our sponsors.
GT MedTech and GammaTile Therapy are a premier sponsor of this season of the Game on Glio podcast. Learn more at GammaTile.com. Curtana Pharma is a premier sponsor of the Game on Glio podcast, developing highly targeted therapies for brain cancer. Learn more at CurtanaPharma.com. This episode is sponsored by Alpheus Medical, advancing a new approach in the battle against glioblastoma. Learn more at alpheusmedical.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are now joined by Diane Pathieu, who was and is the wife of the late Nick Adamski, who I got to know very, very well a few years ago, back in 2023, which is so weird to even say it was back in 2023, 23. It feels like forever ago, and yet it feels like yesterday, which is just a weird space to be in. But she joins us now because she's going to talk with us a little bit about Nick's journey through brain cancer and then versus now, and where you're at, what you've been learning. I preface this by saying that Nick passed away this past winter in 2025 from his brain cancer. So I am grateful to have Diane back on the show just to talk about her journey through grief and loss and what this experience is teaching her. So Diane, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's start out by talking. I mean, a lot has changed since we last really spoke, and I have been championing you and Nick for so long. And I was so proud of how he stood up to his cancer and how he viewed it. It was so admirable. So, he taught me a lot through his process. So, I want to talk about, his fight and your reflection on all that you guys went through while he was fighting.
Where do I begin? It's just weird to sit here without him, because the last time I saw you, obviously, he was here. Look, the journey got to be really difficult. I'm not going to lie. It took a very strange turn, and that turn was very, very rapid. The decisions that had to be made towards the end were decisions that, even though in the back of your mind, you think I should prepare myself for, and logically you really do, when you're face to face, that is absolutely not the part of the brain that works. It's absolutely driven by heart. So the last 5 months were horrible. The last time I heard my husband speak was January 15th of last year. So he lost his ability to speak, and then he lost his ability to do pretty much everything else after that. So it was a very quick decline. And it's very hard to remember those days, in that I remember them so vividly that I purposely suppress them because it's just too painful. Because I think when you get to this point as a widow, maybe as a caretaker in general, you start to question every single thing you did. And then you start to say, I should have, I would have, I could have. And that becomes then this kind of dark abyss that you fall into. And it's totally normal. I'm in therapy, I'm in grief groups, and I'm, in my grief group, which is very, very, very small, 4 of us lost our loved ones to glioblastoma. So to share these stories and these feelings, and it's when I reflect, it's like I can't believe how familiar these stories are. But in that moment, you feel just so extremely alone and isolated. But I think about what you just said, which is his motto during his journey, which was to always stay positive, to always keep your head up, to always advocate and continue to do that. So that's what drives me every day.
What you say touches on, there's so many touch points with what you say, because especially with brain cancer, that specifically with brain cancer, for some reason, that is one of the biggest things, is it affects your speech. That is like one of the first things to go, is your ability to communicate. And that is so unbelievably hard to navigate and deal with. And I wish I'd known going in that was what was going to happen at the end. I don't think you can ever truly prepare for that, but not being able to speak to your spouse, or being able to speak to your spouse, but not being able to hear their voice back. That I went through the same process where even to this day, I haven't talked much about his last moments, his last days, because it's hard for me to even think about or reflect on. Not being able to hear his voice. Like, I'll find a recording or something where his voice is in the background, and I get this like gut punch because it's been so long since I've heard his voice. And I don't think many people do realize that, especially with the brain cancer journey, that that's something you're affected by. It takes their ability to speak, communicate, recognize. And to hear that there are so many people within the small group that you're in that lost their spouse or their loved one to glioblastoma, it surprises me, and it shouldn't, but it surprises me that it's just so relevant. It's just out there so much. So, but Nick really he was a powerhouse. I use some of his mottos today as, I'm going through life, and I think about things that he said, or things that he did, or how he tackled this. And I'm like, well, Nick did that. Nick tackled it this way. Nick saw it this way. So that's how I'm going to look at this today.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have actually a lot of people say that to me. I say it to me. In fact, in my office, I have what would Nick do across my computer, or right above my computer, to motivate me, because I was having a conversation with his parents when they were here last week. We were talking about just that. Like, I can't believe how awful everything was for him. And he still was so positive, and he still kept going. So, his parents, in fact, his father said, I think about that every day when I struggle to get up. Like, well, Nick got up every day. And so that's what motivates him. So a couple days ago, I was having another thing that I'm learning on this journey. I was having a real roller coaster kind of day. And it was in the bottom of the pit there, when I don't even know. I was in the kitchen and something dropped. I don't know, something really silly. Started bawling. You couldn't rescue me if you tried. So here I am, bawling in the kitchen. I'm on the floor, and why is everything so hard? And complaining about everything that happened that day, because it's just been a tremendously busy work week with like a ton of extra stuff, and it was just been a tad bit overwhelming. But so I was just like, every little thing was going wrong. I can't, and here I am screaming into the universe. I finally calmed down. I'm like, okay, now I've gotten so worked up. I'm actually hungry. So I start making food, and I was like, let me just scroll to my phone, because I had gotten a text message. But I forgot that I had my Instagram and TikTok open. So as I close Instagram, and as I'm closing TikTok, I quick hit it open again and scroll up. And as soon as I scroll up, and mind you, this is on the feed. This is not on my page. This is not in saved material. This is on the general feed of TikTok. that I randomly just picked up and scrolled through was Nick's face from a former podcast. And that podcast was Don't Give Up, Get Up, Get Out of Bed, and Keep Going. And then I looked up and I said, fine, I'll get up off the floor. I'll make this. And it was just hilarious because if that wasn't a message from my husband, then I don't know what is.
Right? It's amazing those signs and signals that we get when we need it the absolute most. There's some days where I'm like, I want a sign or I need something from you today and I don't get it. But when I'm not thinking about it and I'm having the hardest moment ever, all of a sudden there it is, or something comes across one of my pages that I'm not even following or paying attention to, or something random will fall in the house to get my attention in another direction. Or it's just very, very bizarre how they show us that, hey, we're protecting you. We're here with you. As you're going through this journey now, this journey of grief and loss and being a widow, which I have worn with pride. I wear it with pride because it is a tough process and a tough journey. And when you can pick yourself up and look back and say, wow, look at where I am compared to where I was, that's something to be really proud of as you're going through this and navigating this, because it's still you're still within the thick of the first year of losing him. What are you learning about this process as you navigate it? What surprises you in a good way, and what are you finding really difficult or challenging that you didn't expect to be difficult or challenging?
So I think maybe the most difficult thing is that I don't think I've even started grieving yet. I think I've been suppressing so I can survive. So I technically, honestly, think I have not begun. I think there have been glimmers of that, right? The memorial, the celebration of life, the spreading his ashes, and all of the emotional things, and some very, very, very difficult days. But I really think the hard part hasn't hit me yet because I'm still pretending that everything's okay. So, and that's the honest truth, is that I really genuinely don't think I've begun yet. The thing that has surprised me, maybe not surprised me, but just like taken me aback a little, is how even the people closest to you don't want to bring it up. It's almost like nothing ever happened, nothing to see here. That's been kind of strange. When I would much rather talk openly about things, a lot of people want to suppress that around me as if to protect me in some way, which, the opposite is true.
I'm glad you brought that up because I noticed that in the first couple of years, honestly, even 5 years in to I don't get many opportunities to talk about Mike. And even though I mention him on Instagram and on social media every once in a while for work, I don't get a chance to really tell stories about him or relive memories about him very often. And so when I get that opportunity, I revel in it. I take joy in it because I want to talk about him. And I noticed those first couple of years, the same thing. A lot of people, I would bring something up and you'd see their faces kind of freeze and they wouldn't respond, or they'd be like, uh-huh. And they'd kind of stop or pivot into another direction, whether it was to protect me or to protect themselves.
And you can't blame them, right? Because they don't know how to navigate this. They don't want to hurt you, and they don't want to offend you, and they don't want to say something insensitive. So they just don't say anything. It's safer. So you can't blame them, right?
Yeah.
But it's sort of like, but I want to talk about it. So it's a real odd position to be in.
Yeah. What have you been learning about that process? Because whether it's family and friends, support systems that you've had, have you seen shifts and changes, that you weren't really expecting?
I don't know what I was expecting, though. This is all new to me. Losing a 80-year-old grandparent is nothing like your 42-year-old spouse. So
yeah.
I don't know necessarily what to expect. Every day is new. Every experience is new. Every conversation I have with people is new. So I don't know that I necessarily have something enlightening like that. And all of this is just still feeling so raw and so new. So I don't even know if I found the right words to describe how I feel.
Mm-hmm. I find that really refreshing. You know, when you're talking about like family and friends, what is leaning on them helpful for you? I mean, do you find that you're leaning on them or
Absolutely not.
really?
I am not a leaner. Never happened. Never happened. The only
Why?
thing I've never been like that. Not as a
Okay.
child, not as a teenager, not as an adult. Never. Just not. Um, my grief group though,
Mhm.
big help, and then obviously therapy. So it's not like I am without support. But I don't. Yeah, I'm not a leaner. No, I don't mind if people want to lean on me. I do not lean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have your support group. You mentioned therapy that you're going to. It's counseling. I'm assuming that you're
Yeah, she's
going
a grief
to.
counselor. Yep.
The grief counselor. How
Yeah.
are you finding that process?
Terrific. Absolutely terrific. So comforting. The guidance is incredible. The understanding of the expectations of the feelings that are to come. So that's been really helpful. But I would say the grief group has almost been better. And that's because now I'm not the newbie anymore. There's two more people, but we're the newbie. And some of them are a little more experienced. So every time I had like a episode that week or real moment of sadness that I couldn't get out of, they have experienced almost identical things and can totally relate. And in fact, there were so many cases where they had suggestions of how to create a safe space for you wherever you were. I completely 100,000% learned that from grief group. I did not have that in my toolbox before that.
That's so it's so weird, as you're explaining this and you're talking about how you're not a leaner. I wasn't a leaner when it came to grief group support. For some
Weird.
reason, that was just not something I could connect with, but I leaned into counseling and I leaned
Sure.
into family and friends. And really actually relished in it, wanted it and needed it, but wouldn't do that with the grief support group. I don't know why. It just didn't click for me or mesh with me. And in all honesty, up here, it was hard to find a group where they were younger individuals and almost nobody in there had gone through the experience of brain cancer.
Sure.
So that could have been part of it. But when you did go to counseling, and I think it's great. For everybody that's watching and listening, I want them to know that whatever it is that works for them,
Yeah.
whatever it is that they need, whether it is to lean on family and friends, whether it's to talk about their partner, whether it's to be part of a support group or to go to counseling, whatever it is that works, do something. Do whatever it is that you need to do to help you feel safe in the space that you're in.
Yeah. And sometimes that's doing nothing.
Exactly.
And that's really important too. Just accept people for however they want to grieve.
Yep. And so when you did you find a counselor right away?
Yes.
You
So
did?
he was in hospice for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So when he first got admitted into hospice is when I started seeing the one-on-one
Okay.
grief counselor. So that would have been 2 weeks before he passed. So I stayed with that one-on-one, and then I didn't join the group until after he passed. That was one of
Okay.
the requirements for the group, but the therapist was while he was in hospice.
Okay. And I ask that because I know for many people, they're afraid to
Yeah.
actually go to counseling or to connect with a counselor. Was that counselor referred to you when he was in hospice, or how did you get connected to them?
You know what? No, I think I just went through my insurance. Yeah, I think
Okay.
it was they just called them and said, where can I look this up? And then they connected me, and it was virtual, so it was really easy for me to do it while he was in the hospital,
Yep. Okay.
So, yeah, it was actually fairly easy to find a grief counselor through my insurance company. I think they're making mental health more of a priority now, or at least I hope they are.
It seems like they are. I'm hoping that they are because at the time that Mike had passed, we were still in the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so grief counselors were absolutely you could not find a grief counselor because everybody was going through something. And so the wait list to get into counseling at all was extremely difficult. And I was fortunate enough to have found somebody that I liked about 3 to 4 months after he died, but it took that long
Wow.
to get to get connected with somebody. Yeah. So I'm hoping that there is a transition between everything that we've gone through, that this country has gone through in the last 5 years. I'm hoping that there is that paradigm and that shift with mental health and prioritizing mental health, because I do think that support like that, that if counseling is something that's a good fit for somebody, it's immeasurably, it's so valuable. And I still go to my counselor to this day, 5 years later.
Well, it's interesting because just within my group, we have someone in their 20s, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up to 80s. So all these different generations of people turning to a counselor for help.
Yeah. Which says a lot and it speaks volumes. So I completely agree with that. What do you feel is helping you move through this journey in the period that you're in right now?
Just the PMA attitude, which is positive mental attitude, which is what he stood for. So that's the single thing that gets me up out of bed every day.
Do you have a motto or something that you say to yourself when you get up to start your day?
What would Nick do?
That's the motto.
Absolutely 1,000%. Stuck in traffic, getting road rage. What would Nick do? At the grocery store, can't find something I'm looking for. What would Nick do? I mean, every minute of every day, what would Nick do? Because he was the most patient, the most kind, the most generous, the most understanding. He was just it. He was everything.
He really was. He really did embody all of those
He
things.
really did.
Yeah. And I'm so blessed and grateful that I got a chance to get to know him alongside of you, because your story is really a beautiful story.
Well, thank you.
And he really did he just exuded that, all of those things.
Yeah, he was my diamond in the rough, which I would always say to him, and he'd always be like, "Don't call me diamond."
That makes me think of the movie Aladdin.
My favorite movie.
Yeah, we have a lot of similarities with those kinds of things.
Yeah, he was my diamond in the rough. I married an angel, and now he's back home.
Yeah. Have you gone through any secondary losses?
We did lose our my sister got a dog for the kids during COVID, and we lost Louis. He was kind of our family dog. And that was really hard because Nick and Louis were actually super close. In fact, when we were family, every Sunday we were together as family, he would immediately run to Nick, stay with Nick the entire time. Like, his mom is right over there, but it was Nick all the time. So Louis passed shortly after Nick did. And so we knew that was why, because he had come over and sniffed around to where Nick was when he was in hospice at home. Even though all the bed, everything was gone, everything was cleaned and sanitized and all the things, but he knew exactly where it was, what happened. He went right to that room, and then he passed away shortly after. So that was kind of sad.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking for somebody who has dogs, but dogs have a keen sense of things. Sometimes my older dog, I had a chocolate lab that actually passed, that was diagnosed with cancer a few months after Mike died. And he was our first dog. He was the very first dog we ever got together. And I was blessed that he lived till he was almost 16.
Wow.
But he died a year after Mike, and he died on Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And I felt like it was just, there was a reason for all of that to happen, to take place. Like, he knew Mike was no longer here.
Yeah.
And it was time for him to be with him.
Oh, yeah.
But my other dog that we had gotten together, she's always looking at certain corners of the house, or like staring in certain areas, and kind of just sitting there very silently. And I'm like, what are you looking at? Like, what? Do you see something that I can't see?
If only we knew. I know.
Right? If only we knew what was going on with them. Outside of that, throughout this whole transition, and with your experience, and you've got Nick's PMA, you use that as a strength for yourself. where do you feel, you said at the beginning, at the top of the show, that you feel like you haven't even begun your grief journey.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing it up and asking is because for me, the second year was harder than the first year. And I don't know if that's the same experience for everybody, but I wasn't prepared for how difficult this, and I feel like even though I thought I was prepared going into that first year after he passed, I thought I was doing what I needed to do. I felt like the second year was when I really started to grieve, and then that lasted for a while. Are you, when you talk about this in counseling and when you go through these ups and downs and these days that you have, is there anything that you lean on for like coping mechanisms or techniques or anything that you do, or even like meditation or breathing exercises that help you deal with some of the anxiety, knowing that you may not be dealing with the heaviest of it yet?
So the answer to that is no. I have not found a coping mechanism because I am too my anxiety is too high for me to sit and meditate. It actually has like the opposite effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
So meditation has never worked. I do go to yoga once a week, and that's super helpful.
Okay.
But no, I haven't found the thing, the technique that will, make me feel a little less over the top. If I'm searching, but I haven't found it yet.
When you talk about this stuff in the grief group, do they offer suggestions, or have you found anything that anyone's talked about that you're like, that's interesting?
Yeah, we've done a lot of things together as a group, which has been very cool. And yes, we always have suggestions. Everybody always has ideas of what to do. And in fact, we've talked a lot about what they have done personally, and there have been really creative ideas, beautiful ideas on ways to cope, ways to take on the day to day. And we've done like sound healing together. We've done meditations together. So yeah, it's been a tremendous opportunity to meet them because they make me think about grief differently. And like I said, so many of us lost our loved ones to the same rare disease that we can connect on a level that I never expected to find in a cancer group.
How did you find the group?
Through Gilda's Club.
Oh, okay.
The second one, the one I'm currently in, is through Gilda's Club. But I'm trying to think of who got me to Gilda's, because I'm very aware of what it is. But somebody, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it began with, it began with the hospice. So the hospice nurse, they give you, all these pamphlets and stuff, and they recommend grief groups. And I had started with one through the hospice first. Mm-hmm. And then when that didn't work for my schedule, when I went back to work, they had recommendations. So that grief group had recommendations for other grief groups with other time slots. And Gilda's was one of those.
Okay, that's good to know. And I want to put that resource up because Gilda's Club is amazing.
Yes,
and amazing. They do have a ton of resources. And that's not a resource I would have thought of before.
And it's free.
Oh, it's free. Okay,
and
that's
they have
good
workshops, not just counseling, but workshops. And just like I mentioned, the sound healing and meditation, yoga, all that's free.
Okay. That's really, really good to know. And I'll make sure to put that up on the site for anybody who's watching if they're looking for resources or need help with resources.
Yeah.
For me, finding a small grief group was really, really a challenge. So I may even poke around myself and just see what it offers.
And I guess I hate to say the cool thing because, gosh, I don't want to be connected this way, but it's only a cancer-only community. Again, I don't want to have that label, but we all have that label. So even though not everybody, it's not all brain cancer, it is all cancer. And so a lot of times the symptoms, they do end up being very, very similar. So as caretakers, your journey into caretaking is very similar.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we wrap up, I'm curious. You said you had mentioned that you still are in contact, that you still talk to Nick's parents, his family. Mm-hmm. Do you stay very connected to them? I mean, does it seem like they want to keep you connected?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We're family. We're never going to not be family for sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's really nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice to see, because I know that there are a lot of individuals out there, especially if there aren't any children involved
Oh,
when the
sure.
spouse dies, that there's secondary losses in the sense that they start to lose the in-law family and the friends because they're no longer viewed as part of the family because the point person has now passed away and is now gone. So I know there have been many individuals who have struggled with, they've wanted to stay connected to the in-law family and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see everybody has a different process and a different journey with that. And it's nice to see that you guys are still very much connected to each other. Do you find that helpful for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but I don't know if I've ever thought about it any other way. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, even in the end, we were planning on, what we're going to do with this and how we're going to handle this. I mean, it was a team effort all the way through, to be honest with you. So I guess I never really imagined it without them.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask kind of an off the cuff personal question. Um, Before Nick lost the ability to speak,
Mhm.
because this process for you guys was gratefully longer, he had more time
Yeah.
that he was healthy through it. Um, did he ever convey? Did you guys ever get a chance to talk about what he wanted as time went on, if things took a turn, or what he wanted for you after?
So we did that right at the beginning of cancer.
You
Mhm.
did.
Oh yeah, we were super pragmatic people. Like we discussed death very openly. We discussed how he wanted things done, how I wanted things done very openly. We went to a lawyer, put it all on paper, got it notarized, the whole thing. Like everything was very clear as day from pretty much actually it was before diagnosis. We talked about it before marriage for sure, but I think even before cancer, everything was laid out to the T before we even knew who was sick. So
Wow.
yeah, that was never a thing.
Okay.
Thankfully. I guess I'm very lucky in that way, right? Like I never had to think about that part of it. It was never nothing. I mean, I basically had everything done before he even passed, just like he would have had mine done before I would have passed. Like we were that organized.
Wow.
But that's because I'm type A, you know.
Yeah. I thought I was type A, but that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, because when he passed, I was like to my parents, "All right, it's your turn. Let's talk about where you." And they're like, "Wow."
Yeah. Let's slow your roll. Don't write us off just yet.
I'm very thankful they have a very good sense of humor.
Oh my God. I love that. There are so many people because of our ages, because of how young we are. I just don't think that we have those conversations. And I
Yeah.
think that's the hard part with a lot of this is that, I mean, Mike and I didn't even have a will,
Oh
you
gosh.
know. I mean, we talked about it. I knew I
Yeah.
was the beneficiary of things when he
Yeah.
started his other job years and years and years ago. And we always said, we're going to get around to it when we have kids. We got to set one up. We got to make sure we do this. It was in the back of our heads, but I think the idea of having those discussions when you're in your 20s, your 30s, your
Yep.
early 40s is just not something you want to talk about until you feel like you're at an age where it needs to become discussion. And so, I ask that because I know a lot of individuals have
Oh yeah.
said, this is not something I think about. It's not something we talk
Absolutely.
about. It's uncomfortable.
I recognize that our situation is extremely rare, but I married a super he was a fireman. I mean, it was a dangerous job, right? No matter what anybody thinks about it, that's the reality of it. So, he had this whole having to face death thing way before cancer, right? So, he knew he wanted to line up his ducks way before a wife and whomever. So when he
Mhm.
got married, we were talking about that even when we were dating. So when you face death every day like that, I think you want to make sure that everything you've worked hard for is taken care of, your family members are taken care of, and your will or your desires, if you will, and how you want to see things done is, if not written down, at least discussed with somebody. And he was very much like that, which made me very much like that.
Well, I think this is good. I mean, these are good teaching moments, for people out there because especially for those who are dealing with brain cancer,
Yeah.
because I didn't know that he was not going to have the ability to speak. And luckily we did have some other things that we had talked about and some things written down. Um, beforehand. But, for anybody who is going through that journey, losing the ability to communicate is something that eventually just it happens. It's just, that's the nature of this. So having those discussions, if you know that these discussions need to be had, especially given what you're dealing with, not be afraid to have those discussions. Even if you're healthy. I mean, my best friends, having gone through this and having been as close as they were to Mike, they've said, we've sat down with our spouses and we've started having discussions. We know we're still in our 40s, we're young, but after going through all of this, we realize that life is too short. I mean, look at James Vanderbeek.
Well, right. And you were saying in 40, it's like, well, it's happening in the 40s. It's happening to people as young as 37 this day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm dealing with I'm a patient advocate for a brain cancer patient who's got a very complex diagnosis with brain cancer. 29.
Yeah.
He's 29. I mean,
more, nothing shocks me.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So let me ask you kind of a fun question, or something that I'm hoping will be fun. Over the course of the next 6 months or so, what is something that you are excited to do?
Okay, so I purposely bought tickets to a concert to go by myself.
Oh!
Yeah, so Nick and I were huge. We would travel the world to go see concerts. So this will be my very first concert without him. So we'll see.
What concert? Can I ask what concert?
Oh, yeah. I think Nothing More comes first. Let me look. Because I actually lined up 3. So the first one is Nothing More, and the next one is Boy George and the Culture Club.
Oh, I love it.
And the final one is going to be No Doubt in Vegas. So we'll see how I do for the first one.
I love it. I think that is not only a perfect way to end, but it's a perfect reminder to everybody to not be afraid to do some things alone.
I'm still afraid, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I'm not afraid, but what
would Nick do it afraid.
What would Nick do?
Yep.
Nick would go to the concert by himself, as he did many times.
Himself. Mm-hmm. Yep. Do it scared. Do it afraid. Yep. I did after Mike died, I took my first, because we love to travel. And so I took my first European trip. I went by myself across 3 countries, completely on my own. I went to, and actually the harder one was going to dinner. I went to a restaurant and ate dinner by myself at a table at a restaurant and stayed.
That's hard.
Through my meal.
That's hard.
Very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
But I did it. And I think no matter how anxious or scared or afraid we are, doing those things reminds us of our inner strength, how much power and strength we have internally to move through this.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're always, look how much Nick has taught you.
Yeah.
You carry that with you.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that that's a good reminder. And I love that. And I want to hear how the concert goes. I want you to tell us.
You're right. I will.
And I'm so grateful that you joined us today. Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners and our viewers that you want them to take away from all this?
Well, I just think to me, the most significant thing that's been, I think, a game changer has been just connecting with other people, maybe not on the exact same platform, but similar. That has been really very positive. And I think surrounding yourself with just a little bit of positivity goes a long way. And I know that's so hard to do when you're in the depths of grief, but just find one thing, one positive thing that you could turn to when you need it the most.
I love that. Diane, thank you so, so much for coming back and connecting with us and sharing a part of this journey that you are in the thick of right now. It's so valuable, and it just means so much to everybody out there. As a reminder that we're not alone in this journey, that there are so many out there, whether we know it or not, that are going through this in their own way. And we can all be a support and hope for each other and a light for each other as we each walk this journey.
Exactly. Well, I thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to see you.
It was so nice to see you too. Thank you so much. And for all of our listeners and our viewers out there, we will be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, healthcare that's a better fit for your life right now. Learn more at highmark.com.
Here's your healthy minute from Highmark. When stress starts to build, try a simple breathing reset. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4, hold for 4, then gently exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. Repeat this a few times. This small pause can help calm your nervous system, ease tension, and bring your focus back to the present moment. It's quick, simple, and something you can do anytime, anywhere. For more ways Highmark supports your total well-being, explore the My Highmark app. It's a free, secure tool where you can access virtual care options, manage benefits, and find health resources tailored to your needs. Download the My Highmark app today on Apple or Google Play. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield has been committed to building healthier communities since 1936 and is a proud sponsor of the Game on Glio podcast. You've been listening to the Game on Glio podcast, the podcast that is designed to educate, advocate, and tell the real stories of those walking the journey of brain cancers such as glioblastoma and grief and loss. Like what you hear? Share us with others. Follow us on Instagram at Game on Glio Podcast, Facebook at Game on Glio, or visit our website or YouTube channel. You can find us anywhere podcasts are played.